All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Seahawks and their upset win over the Niners. We're going to talk about the Niners and how they're kind of in trouble here. They are now in last place, I think, again, in the NFC West. And again, I kept saying this is going to be the team that's going to make a run, but they end up losing. And I did, I was able to catch, some of that game. And, penalties were a problem in the game. Also injuries as well. So George Kittle was ruled out before the game. He was questionable going in, but then it came out that he was unlikely to play and that it was going to be an uphill battle, which was weird because, throughout the week it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal. But I guess, there was a setback, and then he ended up not playing. So they missed him in this game. He's had a great year when he has played, and that's a big target to take out of this offense, and they definitely missed him. Christian McCaffrey is still working his way back, so he didn't have a monster game here. Brock Purdy did go to Juwan Jennings a lot. Juwan Jennings has been good when he's played. Deebo Samuel is relatively quiet. Same thing for Ricky Pearsall. But the defense, I mean, it's a problem, and it's partly because of injuries. Nick Bosa was dealing with a hip injury, and he did play in this game, but then he just couldn't deal with the pain, and he was off the field, in that fourth quarter, and they really missed him because the Seahawks carved them up, and they won the game. Geno Smith, didn't have a monster game, but listen, he put together that final drive, and he scrambled for that go-ahead touchdown, and the Seahawks picked up a huge win to get themselves back to 500. They're 5-5. Everybody in that division, other than the Cardinals who are in first place, everyone's 5-5 right now, and it's really going to be interesting to see how that division plays out the rest of the way here. But you wouldn't have thought the 49ers were going to be in last place. I mean, they're tied with two other teams with the same record, but those teams have the tiebreakers over the Niners. That's why they're in last place. They've lost to every single team in their division this year. They lost to the Rams. They lost to the Cardinals. They just can't hold on to leads. That's been their biggest problem. And if you're able to do that, you're 8-2 right now. The Rams, they were up by a couple of scores. The Rams outscored them 13-3 in the fourth quarter. And then against the Cardinals, you had the Cardinals go down the field. They outscored the Niners in the second half 14-0. They win that game. And then this game here, you get outscored 14-10 in the second half. I mean, this was a little bit of a back and forth game, but you thought and the other thing too is 2 of these 3 games are at home. And also, I mean, with the Rams, though, they don't have a home field advantage, so you had Niners fans take over that stadium, and you lose that game. You can't be losing these games. But that's what's happened. And, right now, they are in last place, technically. So let's kind of go through it. So the Seahawks, the Niners got the ball to start the game. They went 3 and out pretty quickly. Then the Seahawks put together a nice drive, 9 plays, 44 yards. And that led to a Jason Myers 52-yard field goal. Then the Niners answered with a long drive, 12 plays, 71 yards, 8 minutes of time of possession. And Brock Purdy scrambles from 10 yards out to score, and that put them up 7-3. Seahawks then punted. Then Brock Purdy ends up throwing a pick, trying to hit Christian McCaffrey. It got deflected. It got picked off by Jonathan Hankins, who I didn't realize is still playing. That was a guy that used to play for the Giants. He's still playing. And then that led to a Seahawks field goal, a Jason Myers 57-yard field goal, then more punts. So it was 7-6 at the half. Then the 49ers, or the Seahawks, opened up the second half with the ball, and Geno ends up throwing a pick. And that led to a Niners field goal. Yeah, a couple of penalties on this play. You had a holding on the Niners. You also had an illegal formation. Again, more illegal formation penalties. But, that eventually led to a Jake Moody field goal, so that put them up 10-6. But then the Seahawks put together a touchdown drive. They went 11 plays, 70 yards. And that led to a Kenneth Walker 1-yard touchdown. And then the Niners put together almost a 9-minute drive. Down the field they go, and that led to a Brock Purdy to Juwan Jennings 3-yard touchdown, and that made it 17-13. Then the Seahawks got the ball. They turned it over on downs. They went for it on 4th and 1, and Charbonnet didn't get it. But then the Niners didn't do anything with the ball. They ended up punting. And then the Seahawks got the ball, and they went 11 plays, 80 yards. They went right down the field. And Geno Smith scrambled from 13 yards out. Had another scramble in this game as well. Before that, it was for 16 yards. And then the Niners just didn't have enough time to do anything. And, yeah, that was the game. Geno Smith, he went 25 of 32 for 221 yards. No touchdowns and a pick. Kenneth Walker, 14 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown. Geno Smith had 4 carries for 29 yards and a touchdown. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's been productive for them this year. 10 receptions for 110 yards. D.K.Metcalf, 7 catches for 70 yards. Hankins had an interception. 2 sacks by the Seahawks defense. And then for the Niners, Brock Purdy, 21 of 28, 159 yards, 1 touchdown and a pick. It was not great. Christian McCaffrey had 19 carries for 79 yards. Purdy had a rushing touchdown. Juwan Jennings, 10 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown. McCaffrey, 4 for 27. Deebo Samuel, 4 for 22. Pearsall, 2 targets, no receptions. Niners defense had 4 sacks in the game. Nick Bosa had 1.5 sacks in the game, but like I said, was banged up here. Could not finish the game. And the Niners dropped to 5-5, and you got the Packers and the Bills back-to-back road games the next 2 weeks. Those are tough games. Hopefully they get George Kittle back. I don't know what the status is going to be for Nick Bosa, but this is a team that's banged up and is searching for answers. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to see the Niners miss the playoffs, but it could happen because this is a team that just continues to blow leads. And now you got 2 tough opponents coming up on the schedule, both road games. I mean, it's hard for me. I think the Niners will find a way to maybe, at least split and go 6-6. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. And also Brock Purdy is on the injury report. Right now he's dealing with a little bit of shoulder soreness. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be too serious. But still, I mean, it's just injuries have hurt them. And this is what hurt them during the COVID season. Now, COVID season was a little bit different. Because I think by this point the Niners were pretty much out of it. The Niners are still in it. They can still win the division. And it's not like you have a ton of guys that are out for the season. There are guys that are going to come back. Brandon Ayuk is the major piece on offense that's out for the season. But you got Pearsall back. You got Deebo Samuel back. Juwan Jennings is back. You hope to get George Kittle back next week. McCaffrey's back. So, they could still figure this out. But, they got to do this soon. Because you're neck and neck with everybody in your division. And, right now the Cardinals are in first place. So, they have an opportunity to take them down when they play them in Arizona soon. But, they got to start winning games. But this is just not the same team that it was last year. And I don't know if it's going to get better. Like I said, I think they got the experience that I still think that they will figure it out. But, again, you're kind of running out of time here. So they got to get things going, and it starts in Lambeau next week against the Packers, which is a huge game. And that's a rematch of the divisional round from last year. So, but getting George Kittle back for that game would be huge. And listen, Brock Purdy, this was a game he did not play well in. There have been games this year where, they're missing guys, but he still plays well. They just didn't have Kittle, and he was not good. But you got to credit the Seahawks defense. They really stepped up in this game. They shut him down. the 49ers, they hurt themselves with the penalties. Penalties were a problem here. And, with the injuries on the defensive side of the ball, Bosa getting taken out of the game did make a huge difference. The Seahawks really carved them up on that last drive. And Geno finally breaks through and beats the Niners, because that's been a problem since he's been the starter. So we'll see what happens, though, going forward. But I still, the 49ers I still have some faith in. Like, there's teams that, that I had doing well this year that, we'll talk about one of them in the next segment, that I'm just, it's over. But the Niners, I think, could still turn this around. And it's not like they're out of it. They're 5-5. You're a game behind the Cardinals in the division. You have an opportunity to play them and beat them. So, get George Kittle back. Hopefully, get guys healthy on defense, and you go from there. But the other thing, too, is McCaffrey's still trying to get himself back into the swing of things. So, as he gets more in tune again, you're going to rely on him. And hopefully he has some of those Christian McCaffrey games down the stretch where he just goes off. You're really hoping for that as a Niners fan. And I think we will get that. It's not like he hasn't done anything. It's just, this is his second game back. He's missed most of the year. So it's going to take some time. But I was shocked by this game. I thought the Niners would win it. But then again, you could say, well, they've blown leads against their other two divisional opponents, so this is no different. But this is a team that they've owned. They own the Seahawks. And this was the Seahawks' first win since Russell Wilson was the starter. So, yeah, it was disappointing. So we'll see what happens going forward. But tough loss for the Niners, and we'll see if they could bounce back next week. But it's going to be tough. Back-to-back road games. It's not going to be easy against the two teams they're going up against, the Packers and the Bills. Those are two tough games. Are they going to be able to respond? I think they definitely can. But they got to go out there and prove it. But let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. Again, a gutsy win by the Seahawks. They've been a weird team this year, too. You start off 3-0, then you lose your next three. They've been a weird team. But they're not out of it either. And they got a good roster. The Seahawks have a good roster. It's just the Niners have owned them. And I thought that it was going to be the case here, but no, the Niners just couldn't really get anything going offensively, and the defense, struggled at the end there. So, but credit to them for the win. So we're going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the Jets and their most recent loss to the Indianapolis Colts. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.